today I'm going to be talking about choice, and I'd like to begin with a quote. Demi Lovato once said, "I've come to realize your career is all about the choices you make. Every single one matters." This quote refers to an action that is done by everyone in this room every day. Decisions, a concept that first began when the first human being decided to walk in one of two paths. An idea that grew when we had problems to solve, and a breathtaking climax when our societies are at stake. Any way you look at it, our lives are full of possibilities. No more are the expectations of parents molding us to what we become. No longer do we dress in a certain way or are required to follow a certain faith. In this new generation, we are given the freedom, oftentimes, to choose your leadership style, your learning patterns, and your daily habits. So fortunate we are all to live in this country where we get to choose how we decide to live our lives. And so many options are available to us because we have the determination and hard work to get us there. And yet, I've always questioned if it's possible that we can be overwhelmed by having too many options. Is it plausible to be completely overwhelmed by having simply too many options at our disposal? This concept was first introduced to me through Barry Schwartz's The Paradox of Choice. In this incredibly well-written book comes out the potential idea of if it is possible to be overwhelmed by simply having too many choices again. And when I read it, I was completely intrigued by how the book works. He mentioned, is 26 different ice cream flavors better or worse than the standard chocolate or vanilla? Is it a good idea to introduce 11 jobs on career day to a young innocent child that allows him to be what he actually wants to be? And is introducing so many different forms of medicine to a patient going to make his overall treatment better or worse? Because come on, people. I always wondered what was the strict benefit of scaring all your patients away before you actually even get to administer them the medicine. And I'm pretty sure, looking among this crowd, there may be some die-hard doctors in here who may properly inform me on the proper procedures of how to treat people. And if that does occur, I'll calmly stand corrected. So I will move on to a more common subject in our society. Let's all be honest people here. Raise your hand if you have ever heard of cappuccino potato chips. 1, 2, 2 people, all right. Well, that's very impressive. If you haven't, I don't blame you. This is the cappuccino potato chip, along with its fabled ally, the wasabi-flavored Lay's. And when I saw these two flavors, I was impressed with how innovative humans are. So let's follow up with 2 questions. Is this creative? Definitely. This is very creative. But does it look like something I want to try? Hesitantly not. This is one of the many examples in our society that shows innovation doesn't necessarily bring about huge pluses to society. Then just more recently, a few months ago, my family was searching for a deep fryer. And when we were looking for one, we decided to go on the internet first in order to get a vague idea of what's out there. And what a better place to start than Amazon. And here's what we found. The actual important parts are on the arrow on the top. And if you can't see it, I apologize. So I actually zoomed in on it. The next slide. Upon seeing that, it meant I had a lot of scrolling to do. But it also meant how many options society is presenting to us today and how it's going to continue to grow throughout the rest of our lives. So, choice, right? What is exactly, well, some people already know what to do when they go to the store to buy stuff. The typical adult already has a vague idea of what to buy or how to spend their time because of their lifelong tenacious habits. But what if your lifetime hasn't necessarily started yet? What if you're still wondering what to do after you left that warm, safe environment provided by your parents? In my opinion, the most important choices in life is actually your education, college, and future career. And to give you all a scale, at Upper Dublin's most recent college fair, we had 120 colleges in the high school cafeteria, all rooting for themselves. Saying that, I'm curious to know, what do you think is the total number of colleges in the US? Any volunteers? Take a guess at it. Volunteers? Yeah?
500.
500 colleges in the US? Okay. 5,000?
42,000.
42,000. That's very close. There is actually a total number, more than 5,000 colleges in the US. And that's roughly 100 colleges per state. That's a lot. And then you have to consider 48 generalized industries for all of them to follow, which branch off into 12,000 careers. And if you don't believe me, this is the actual amount. Now, if you take a look at the screen, there are actually new ones constantly being added. And so by the time you get to decide what you want to be when you grow up, there'll be maybe far more than this amount. Now, when I saw this, the first thing that could come to my mind was career day in elementary school certainly helped me with this. And really, it really doesn't. So we have to answer the question exactly now. What exactly is choice? Choice, defined by the Merriam-Webster, is the opportunity or power to choose between two or more possibilities. And really, the science behind decision-making is sort of complex, yet really simple at the same time. To start off, we have bias on the screen up there. Bias is really just your personal and occasionally unreasonable judgment on certain things. So for example, I prefer apples over oranges. And I say that because I think they look better, taste better, are just more available to my family over that of oranges. To any orange fans out there, I apologize that offended you. But this is what bias is. And really, it just gives us a preference on certain subjects. Following it, there's implicit bias, which, as you may have noticed, also contains the word bias. In actuality, they're not that much different. Implicit bias operates on a more subconscious scale, which is really just a fancy way of saying it's irrational when you try to apply logic to it. For example, my favorite color is teal. And if you don't know what that color is, it's a lighter blue in between green and blue. I prefer it over other colors, such as red and blue, because I instinctively find it more soothing. There's no proper explanation for it, yet I just think it's better. And subconsciously, that's why I believe it. Finally, last but not least, there's priming. Priming is the simple stimulus that allows you to more quickly follow up to another thing. For example, if I were to say the word green, some of you may think of plants, others may think of the green recycling arrow, and some of you may think of that green shoe you found the other day at the store. It's really just a stimulus that allows you to more quickly think of other things. Saying green wouldn't prime you to think of ovens or ice cubes, for example, because they're not green in actuality. And that's why when we reference some things, it allows us to more quickly follow up to others. We have a moral system that allows us to go to other subjects. We have a subconscious moral system to guide us. And we also have parents and guardians to prime us to the subjects we enjoy and love. This is why, this in a nutshell is how choice is made. Now, I also want to mention that basically because of these, we decide on how to make decisions. These three things make up the majority of choice. And really, if you think about it, while it does make sense of how it works, how does it really match up to the numerous things society presents us? Our parents and guardians can't really prime us to everything there is. Our moral compass can only guide us to certain things, and our bias only extends as far as our experience. So, most importantly, we also can't multitask. And despite our best efforts, my best attempts as well, as much as I've tried, multitasking is not efficient at all. And to prove this point, we have this person, which I showed you earlier. Sheena Iyengar is a former TED speaker and author. She conducted an experiment where she had 2 tasting booths of jam, one with 24 choices and the other with 6. Take a guess at which one was far more popular with customers and people going to it. 6 or 24? 6. That is correct. The sixth choice booth was 6 times as popular as the latter. And really, the reasoning behind it is simple. Because we like to do things easier, having less options means less thinking about it, and thus, we go to the sixth choice booth more oftenly. Now, after all this rambling, you may be wondering, what point am I trying to go at? In our society today, we are beginning to have more options for how our future will turn out. We get more clubs at school, more academics to learn from, more colleges to choose from. And the ultimate catch is that I'm beginning to see more and more people having their parents or guardians push them to certain subjects, not the actual kids themselves who make the final choice. And since elementary school, we've been asked the question, what do you want to do when you grow up? And nowadays, the most common answer is, I don't know. Following that is probably being a doctor, maybe being a businessman, going to one of these generalized, safer subjects the society stereotypes as. And if you think about it, do the majority of people ask really want to be a doctor, go into business? Probably not. So why are so many people choosing these topics over the other ones? The reason is because society primes these more often than others. So many people I know are beginning to choose these safer subjects over those that they actually have a passion for. And through brutal irony, this is a time where we have the greatest capacity to choose, and yet less and less people are actually going for it. Most of them are too scared or paralyzed to actually choose the ones they feel like they want to do. And so, really, upon thinking about this, we have to realize life isn't about making the most amount of money. It isn't about achieving the most amount of fame. In actuality, in my opinion, it's about becoming yourself and discovering who you are. And before we lose our identity, we must remember the one privilege we get in our lifetime is to be who you are and not what others expect you to be. And so, let your implicit bias guide your gut. Let your personal bias gravitate you towards things you want to do. And let your friends and family prime you to things you wish to do. I, for a time, wondered what I wanted to do as well. I considered on being a doctor, maybe going into business, but then I never realized how interested I would be in public speaking. And upon taking the class in 9th grade, I realized I was both very brave, very reckless, and also I enjoyed the class very much. It certainly did expand my horizon. This year, I took psychology as a sophomore, even though there are far more impressive classes for my college resume. And what I'm trying to say right now is that sometimes you just have to be and discover yourself. Life is a journey about self-discoverment, and we have to keep following it throughout the rest of our lives. And so, a competitive person, I'm not. A person striving to be who he is, that I am. May our collaborative efforts take us to uncharted depths, undiscovered dreams, and unexpected hopes. Thank you.